In a world filled with distractions and noise, true wisdom is rare, but ignorance is everywhere. The Stoics taught us that intelligence is not just about knowledge, it's about virtue, discipline, and the ability to reason clearly. A foolish person, on the other hand, is not just someone who lacks knowledge, but someone who refuses to learn, who resists growth, and who is controlled by emotions rather than logic. Today we will explore 6 signs of a foolish person, based on the principles of modern Stoicism. The goal is not to judge, but to recognize these traits within ourselves and others, so that we may correct them. As Marcus Aurelius said, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If we seek wisdom, we must first remove the stains of ignorance. Let's uncover these 6 signs and learn how to rise above them. 1. Lack of self-control, self-redreinal, is the foundation of wisdom. A person who cannot govern their emotions, desires, or impulses is like a ship without a captain, drifting aimlessly, controlled by the winds of external circumstances. The Stoics taught that true power lies not in dominating others, but in mastering oneself. Marcus Aurelius emphasized this when he said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." A foolish person lacks this internal discipline. They react emotionally rather than respond rationally. When anger arises, they lash out instead of pausing to reflect. When temptation appears, they indulge without considering the consequences. Instead of living by reason, they live by impulse, chasing short-term pleasure at the cost of long-term well-being. In relationships, this lack of self-control leads to unnecessary conflict. In finances, it results in reckless spending. In decision-making, it fosters impatience and poor judgment. The wise person, guided by Stoic principles, understands that emotions are natural but must be controlled. They train their mind to pause, reflect, and act with reason rather than react impulsively. Seneca warned against allowing emotions to dictate our actions, stating, "Most powerful is he who has himself in his own power." This is why the Stoics practiced techniques like negative visualization, journaling, and meditation to strengthen their self-discipline. They knew that the battle for wisdom begins within. 2. Avoidance of responsibility. One of the clearest signs of a foolish person is their refusal to take responsibility for their actions. Instead of owning their mistakes, they blame others, circumstances, society, or even fate. The Stoics, however, believed that personal responsibility is the key to growth and inner strength. As Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." A person who avoids responsibility refuses to acknowledge their role in their failures. If they lose a job, they blame their boss. If they fail in a relationship, they blame their partner. If they struggle in life, they blame the system. But the wise person understands that blaming others is a distraction from self-improvement. Stoicism teaches us that while we cannot control everything that happens, we can control our responses. When we take responsibility, we gain power. If we make a mistake, we learn from it. If we fail, we adapt and try again. The foolish person, however, remains stuck in a cycle of excuses and self-pity, never moving forward. The Stoics practiced radical accountability. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily to act with integrity, to own his actions, and to take full responsibility for his thoughts and decisions. Those who embrace this mindset develop resilience, while those who avoid responsibility remain trapped in their own weakness. 3. Closed-mindedness. A foolish person resists learning and refuses to consider new perspectives. They cling to their existing beliefs, dismissing any idea that challenges their worldview. The Stoics, on the other hand, valued wisdom above all and understood that growth comes from an open and inquisitive mind. As Marcus Aurelius said, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth." Close-minded individuals are often driven by ego and fear, They see admitting they are wrong as a sign of weakness rather than an opportunity for growth. Instead of listening to understand, they listen to respond. Instead of questioning their assumptions, they defend them blindly. This prevents them from evolving, learning, or gaining wisdom. In contrast, the Stoic philosopher Seneca advised embracing lifelong learning, saying, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." The wise person welcomes constructive criticism, values different perspectives, and continuously refines their understanding. They do not fear being wrong because they recognize that correction is a step toward truth. Closed-mindedness leads to stagnation, while open-mindedness leads to enlightenment. To grow, one must be willing to challenge their own beliefs, seek knowledge, and embrace the humility required to admit when they are wrong. 4. Excessive ego. A foolish person is ruled by their ego, seeking validation rather than truth. They crave attention, status, and approval, often prioritizing their pride over personal growth. The Stoics warned that ego blinds us, distorts our judgment, and prevents us from becoming wiser. As Epictetus said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." Excessive ego makes people resistant to feedback. They see criticism as a personal attack rather than an opportunity to improve. Instead of embracing humility, they inflate their sense of self-importance, believing they are always right. This arrogance keeps them from learning, evolving, and seeing reality clearly. Marcus Aurelius, despite being the most powerful man in Rome, constantly reminded himself to stay humble. He wrote, "Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about others. Instead, be rigorous in examining your own thoughts." A person ruled by ego may achieve temporary success, but their arrogance will eventually lead to failure. The wise person, in contrast, understands that humility is the gateway to growth. They do not seek to be admired, they seek to be better. 5. Reactive nature. A foolish person acts on impulse, letting emotions dictate their decisions rather than reason. They react without thinking, often making situations worse. The Stoics believe that true strength lies in self-mastery, in the ability to pause, reflect, and choose a rational response instead of an emotional reaction. As Seneca said, "He who is slow to act with reason is quick to act with foolishness." A reactive person is easily provoked. If someone insults them, they lash out. If they face a setback, they panic. If things don't go their way, they complain or quit. This emotional volatility not only weakens their judgment, but also gives power to others, because anyone who can trigger a reaction from you controls you. The Stoics taught that external events don't disturb us, our interpretations do. The wise person controls their mind, the fool lets the world control it for them. Marcus Aurelius practiced the art of delayed response, pausing before speaking, thinking before acting, and never letting temporary emotions dictate permanent action. He knew that every reaction is a choice. The difference between wisdom and foolishness is the ability to choose well. Instead of being ruled by impulses, the Stoic remains calm, measured, and in control. To develop this discipline, the Stoics practiced negative visualization, preparing for difficulties before they happened. They reminded themselves that anger, frustration, and fear are just thoughts, fleeting and powerless unless given attention. When you learn to master your reactions, you become unshakable. When you let impulses rule, you remain a slave to circumstance. 6. Disregard for growth. A foolish person resists self-improvement, believing they already know enough or that growth is unnecessary. They remain stagnant, unwilling to challenge themselves, ignoring opportunities to develop wisdom, character, and skill. The Stoics, however, saw life as a continuous journey of learning and refinement. As Seneca said, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." A person who disregards growth often makes excuses. They blame circumstances, age, or external obstacles instead of taking responsibility for their own development. They reject feedback, avoid challenges, and choose comfort over progress. This mindset leads to mediocrity, because without effort there is no improvement. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to strive for excellence, writing, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." The Stoics believed in daily self-examination, reflecting on one's thoughts, actions, and progress. They understood that wisdom isn't something you acquire once, it's something you cultivate every day. Growth requires humility, the ability to admit there is always more to learn. It requires discipline, the willingness to put in the effort, and it requires courage, the strength to step outside of one's comfort zone. A wise person embraces challenges as opportunities to grow, while a fool avoids them out of fear or laziness. The choice is simple: evolve or remain stagnant.